This is the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast, episode number 3. Hello, and welcome to the Christmas Movie Screenwriter Podcast. I'm your host, Caryn McCann. The Christmas Movie Screenwriter is a podcast and blog about writing, producing, and selling Christmas movies. You can sign up for our newsletter and our membership website at www.christmasmoviescreenwriter.com. Today's guest is Charles Shyer, who is a writer, producer, and director. He has a contrarian view on Christmas movies. He believes they should not depend on the Christmas season, but stand on their own merits. He offers a fresh take on Christmas movies that you will enjoy. Here is that interview. Today's guest is Charles Shyer. As a writer, director, producer, Charles Shyer has carved out a successful niche unique in American movies today. Influenced by the great films of the 1930s and 40s, he has fashioned a series of films unparalleled in their blending of classic Hollywood style with a contemporary social perspective. Marked by crisp dialogue and solid structure, his hits include Private Benjamin, the critically acclaimed Irreconcilable Differences, Baby Boom, Father of the Bride, and Father of the Bride Part 2, The Parent Trap, The Affair of the Necklace, Alfie, and his latest, The Noel Diary. Well, Charles, thank you for coming on the show today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Now, I told the audience just a little bit about you, but why don't you take a minute and tell us about yourself and your work?
Well, I've been writing movies for a long time. I started as actually an assistant to Gary Marshall, and kind of worked my way up there. I was kind of a fly on the wall to into story meetings and things like that. And Gary kind of encouraged me to become a writer. I started out actually as an assistant director, and then moved into working for Gary, and he made me a story editor and a script consultant, I guess it was called in those days. And I worked on The Odd Couple and a bunch of other things, and kind of then moved into movies. And when my first movie was that I got credit on was Smokey and the Bandit. And then from there on, which was a weird first movie because I'm a kid from Studio City, California, who never even heard of a CB radio or an 18-wheeler.
Right.
I knew nothing about this. I'm from upper middle class. Anyway, and that's it. And that's how I got started. I started writing, and then I knew that I had to get out of just writing because I didn't like turning my stuff over to other people. So that was my motivation to start directing.
Oh, okay. Well, that's great. But now let me ask you this: how did you get started in writing Christmas movies, and what steps did you take to establish yourself in that genre?
It actually came to me. This movie, I always kind of wanted to. I had a little bit of a desire, I suppose, to do certain genres. I wanted to do a kids movie, which we did, The Parent Trap, and I always kind of wanted to do a Christmas movie, but I never felt they were. I never felt connected to any of them. And then Netflix sent me this script that they had, The Noel Diary, based on a novel. And I thought I could easily, well, not easily, nothing's easy.
Yeah.
I thought I could turn it into something personal for me that stood on its own, not as a Christmas movie, but as a movie. And I rewrote it with my friend and sometime writing partner Rebecca Connor, and it turned out really well. But it's a movie that I think stands on its own with or without Christmas. And then I have this other movie that I did called Best Christmas Ever that's coming out this Christmas, I think. That's I just co-wrote. It's not a personal movie for me.
Okay. Now, so what do you consider is crucial for a Christmas movie to be successful in a screenplay?
Well, see, I I'm not a big fan of the Christmas movies.
That's good.
I,
That's good to
I
know.
have to say, I mean, the Hallmark movies are not my cup of tea, and I wouldn't have done that kind of movie. I wanted to do a movie that, ha- that that as I said, stood on its own. Wasn't wasn't dependent on being about Christmas. Although I thought that the holiday season adds a great visual touch to movies and gives you a kind of a subtext. So there's a warmth, and I love the weather. I love the snow and all that stuff. So that part of it I like. I don't like. I'm not attracted to the corniness of a lot of these Christmas movies, to be honest with you. You know.
Well, you really touched on something that is so key, which is very novel and unique, and that is those holiday movies need to stand on their own. And this is the challenge because these characters seem pretty stock. So that leads to my next question, which is how do you create memorable characters when you've got this Christmas movie quote formula?
Well, I think you try to avoid the formula, number one. I mean, you don't have the female star coming out of the store with a armful of packages, and she bumps into the cute guy, and they drop all the packages and pick them up together. You try to avoid that kind of stuff, or the couple that's having a huge fight, the mother and father, and they don't want to. And at the big Christmas party, they don't want to tell the kids that they're splitting up, but by the end of it, they get back together. You just don't want to do those kind of movies. I mean, I don't want to. They're all,
Right.
or where the ending. In Act One, the ending. I'd rather have some twists and turns, and basically, what I strive for is a perennial, a movie that you can show every year. Like It's a Wonderful Life would be
Right.
Not that I'm in that league at all, but just a standalone movie. I think that's what I would aim for. It's the reason I didn't do this other movie that's coming out this fall on Netflix. I didn't want to do two Christmas movies as a director. I just wanted to do one and move on.
Well, I hope that the Netflixes, the streamers, and the broadcasters are really open to going outside the formula, because I just discovered Christmas movies a year ago, so I'm new to the game. But I'm like, this seems a bit formulaic, so I do something a little bit strange, which is add action. But anyway, we'll see how that goes.
No, you're right. I mean, anything you can do to get off that. But I don't know. They're so successful that do you want to screw around with it? I don't know. It's not my cup of tea. These movies, I would never watch a Hallmark Christmas movie. It's not. I've never seen one.
You're the perfect guest. Because you have the fresh point of view. Now, there obviously we all know there's a big strike going on, and AI is a big topic. Do you think AI will change the way Christmas movies are written or made? And if so, how?
I think I really don't know. I think AI, if they went into Christmas movies, would only make them more cliche.
Yeah.
They're already so cliche that all they'll do is take the cliches and amplify them.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's going to be a lot of invention coming out of AI with Christmas movies. That's for sure. I don't think AI. Somebody just played me an AI song that they said that somebody put together that is supposed to be a combination of all of John Lennon's lyrics and stuff. And I thought it felt just so mechanical and lacked. I think the thing that really lacked for me, and I think that's going to be the problem with AI, is it's soulless. It lacks soul. And I think not that Christmas movies are so soulful, but what modicum of soulfulness they have, I think would be lost with AI.
Yeah, and you use two words that are so appropriate: mechanical and soulless.
Yeah.
You managed to shift from the typical Christmas movies with this standalone idea, which I applaud. Are there current shifts that that the screenwriter should be aware of, or that studios are taking a slight shift in this kind of formulaic genre?
I'm not sure they are. I guess if you could get a spin on a story that they haven't done, but I have no idea how many Christmas movies have been made, but I'm sure it's just volumes, and I think it's hard to come up with a fresh approach. That's why
yes.
the movie that we did was really not, I mean, what I loved about it is every house that we're in, we can have a fire going, we can have snow outside the window, we can have all that atmospheric stuff that I think can really add to a movie. And people are bundled up in scarves and gloves, and I love that kind of stuff. But we had Christmas trees a lot in the background, and the movie ends at Christmas and stuff. But Christmas is not the movie. I could take Christmas out of this movie, in other words, like I said, and it would still work 100% because it's mostly a relationship movie.
Well, I'm very encouraged to hear that, because there are some rumors around that people say, if you could make this is for people who think inside the box, and they say, right, if this movie could be made without Christmas, then it's not a Christmas movie. And I'm like, well, we gotta break that frame, break that mold.
Well, that's absurd.
Yeah.
That's just not no, that's just not true either.
Yeah.
Now, I guess it's a Wonderful Life be made without, I don't know,
Well, it's like the old argument, is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
No, of course not. No, of course not.
Now, you sort of answered my next question, was how do you balance meeting audience expectations while delivering fresh and original stories? You are already thinking outside the box and have a fresh take.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I swear I never think of the audience. I only think of what I would want to see. And, you hope you're tuned in, and the zeitgeist is with you and stuff, but I don't ever think of the audience, really. I just don't think that way. I think that's also, then you started to get into formulas again, because,
yes,
if you're trying to please an audience, then I think you're going down the wrong track. You got to please yourself and come up with stuff that would make you want to watch it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Now, this podcast is aimed, at writers and producers and sales agents, but let's focus a little bit on screenwriters on this next question. How do you suggest for the people getting into this genre that they network and find producers? Do you suggest conferences? If so, which ones? Do you suggest competitions or online platforms?
God, I'm so not the person to ask this question. I don't really, most of my movies, originally Nancy Myers and I wrote and produced and directed ourselves. And then the other ones I've done, I've just kind of, I have friends. I don't know. I don't know that kind of stuff that well. Okay. I think that if you have talent and you really can write, you're not deluding yourself, that you will get noticed. I think it's very hard to be a great writer or a really good writer and not have somebody understand what you're doing or appreciate what you're doing. It just kind of happens. I think it's like an old agent told me a long time ago, or an agent told me a long time ago, activity breeds activity. So you have to do it. You have to write it. You can't, everybody has ideas, but to put them on paper and to execute them and finish the script, that's a whole other thing and process. So, it's, I don't know, it's complicated.
Do you prefer directing over writing over producing, or you just like doing all of them?
Well, producing's the easiest. Writing is the hardest, and directing would be the next hardest. But writing is really hard because you're alone, or even if you have a partner. When you're a director, you can turn into the cinematographer, the set decorator, the editor. I mean, all these, you have a lot of help. and a lot of support. When you're writing, it's just it's in you're in a wilderness much more. It's not contained.
Yeah.
And so I find writing the hardest, directing would be next, and producing. I don't even know what producing is. I mean, it's kind of I don't quite understand the job. I've done it, but I do it differently, and Nancy does it differently. I mean, we're just really hands-on. But most producers are, like on my last couple of movies, producers never came around.
Okay.
But that was partly because
you've got so much experience,
and I didn't really want their opinions.
Yeah.
I mean, I just the truth, I mean, what are they gonna teach me after all this?
Yes, exactly. Okay, so let's talk numbers a little bit, if we could. What budget range or number of locations or speaking parts do you aim for when either you're thinking of producing the script, or I should say, starting writing the script? And then as a producer, what would you prefer?
Yeah. No. I mean, well, I used to when I started out, my dad was an assistant director, and I was too. So I have a lot of production experience. And when I'm writing, it's almost unconscious. But when I'm writing, I don't ever try to limit the number of characters, but I do try to be aware of the locations. You don't want to have a half a page in a baseball stadium. It's just not practical. So you have to figure out, and repeating locations as much as possible will lower the budget. It all comes down to how many days you need to shoot the movie, and that's really what I think about the most. I try to keep it contained because it's very hard to get movies made today. It's not like when I was starting out, which was a lot easier and the budgets were a lot bigger. So now you have to be budget conscious and cost conscious, which is the same thing, I guess.
How many days is your ideal for a Christmas movie?
Well, I shot this last movie in 27 days, and
Wow.
it was too tight. Now I had actors that I loved, Justin Hartley and Barrett Doss I loved. So, and it was a very small cast, with Bonnie Bedelia, James Ray. I had, so it was a contained situation, and that was that just happened. But for me, I would like to have 40 days minimum, I think. I mean, I could have used more days on this movie, but it turned out really well. But we rehearsed a lot, and the cast was just very compliant. So, and it was, again, a small cast, so I didn't have to, and it wasn't a ton of locations. So,
That's key.
Yeah, it is.
So now you've been doing this a while. What advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, I turned down a lot of stuff that I shouldn't have turned down. And I guess there was a kind of a cockiness or an arrogance that I didn't have the humility that I have today. But then the business was much different back then, now it's really hard to get stuff made. So
yes.
I would be more conscious. I'd just be more careful about saying no.
That's a good answer. Good. That's very, very unique. Okay, Now to wrap up, would you like to share any social media details or website links or about upcoming movies when they're coming out?
No, I don't really. No. I mean, I have an Instagram account, and I'm not big into social media. I had this movie coming out in November on Netflix called Best Christmas Ever, and I have a new movie that I'm going to be working on, but that's not announced yet because we're on strike. And that's kind of it, I'm just trucking along.
Well, that I got to say, that title is like gold. It's a gold mine. Best Christmas ever.
I hope the movie's a gold mine. With this strike, it's tough because when you're doing a movie for the streamers, you don't make any residuals, and that was kind of my lifeline for a long time. So hopefully that'll change.
Right, right. So everything's sort of on hold until,
Exactly. But
who
I just heard today that they made a breakthrough. So we'll see.
knows?
I don't know.
Wow,
That would be great.
you could be our good luck charm.
Oh yeah, yeah, from your lips, please.
Well, Charles, thank you so much for coming on the Christmas Movie Screenwriter podcast. This has been such a fresh, enjoyable, very actionable, very encouraging podcast, and also just you really have a fresh point of view, and it's just endearing. And I'm so glad that you agreed to the podcast.
Well, great. You did a great interview. I really appreciate it, and good luck with the show. I hope
Great.
it's a hit for you.
Oh, thank you, and we'll talk later.
Okay, great. So long.
And now for my key points. Number 1, aim to make an evergreen movie. Your Christmas movie needs to stand on its own without the Christmas season. How do you do that? Well, focus on relationships between the characters. The gold standard is It's a Wonderful Life, which came out in 1946. But its lovely story inspires audiences year after year to watch it again and again. Number 2, meet cute. Avoid the cliche meet cute where the girl comes out of the shop with a bunch of packages in her arms and she bumps into the guy, drops everything. Be original. Find a new and entertaining way to have your leads meet. Number 3, how to have a fresh point of view. Don't worry about what the audience wants. Write what you want to see. In this way, your fresh idea will stand out in a genre that is somewhat known for being formulaic. Number 4, locations. To keep the budget low, repeat locations as much as possible. Well, that's the show. Thank you for listening. To show your support, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts, and sign up to be notified of our launch of the membership website at christmasmoviescreenwriter.com. I'm your host, Caryn McCann, and I'll see you on the next Christmas Movie Screenwriter podcast. Bye.